Smoke. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Ben with Mechanized Cleaning Solutions. We're going to get into this build your own reclaim system for hopefully less than $500. We'll see what it actually turns out to be. Still got a few more parts to go pick up. But what we're going to do is we're going to break this whole thing up into a little 3-part mini series. Part 1, we're going to do the theory, which is going to be today. So we're going to basically design this thing out, lay out our goals, and basically figure out what we're going to do. And then part 2 is going to be the build, and then part 3 is going to be the test. And we'll do the build and the test probably next weekend. We got some stuff going on this weekend that's not going to let me build this thing this weekend, but it's not going to take a whole lot of time. We'll probably be able to do it in a day. Build the thing out and give it a test in a day. Maybe we might even be able to combine the build and the test into one video. But we were going to do this with this guy, Alex, who's not too far from us, but he had some stuff come up this weekend, I think with his kids or something like that. Not able to make it up, and but I want to get into this and get this done. So we're going to basically go over to the design and the goals of this thing today, and then basically get the basic premise out of the way. So and then we'll do the build next weekend. Anyways, let's see, where we're going to start. We got to lay out what our intentions are. What are we trying to do? That's really important anytime you're doing anything in business. You want to be very clear about your goals and what you want the outcome to be, because in business, the main thing that you're doing, right? You're sort of taking command of your own life. You've decided you want to step out of an institutional employment situation and you want to go do your own thing. You want to be in charge of your own life. You want to have a little more control over your own destiny. And to do that, the most important thing you need to do is you need to very simply learn to start happening to your life more than it happens to you. So with that said, we're going to, in one sense, we're going to be negotiating with reality. We want to bring a new situation into being out of nothing using just shit we can find anywhere. And we want to use this tool to increase our profits and our scope of work of what we're capable of doing, and basically allow ourselves to become a match to what the pressure washing industry is going to be in the near future with these environmental rules. So without further ado, let's start. Okay, so let's think about what we want our goals to be for this system, for this endeavor that we're going to do, that we're going to step out into this new domain of work. What do we want to do? We want to be able to, most importantly, for a reclamation pressure washing system, what we're going to be doing with this first system, which is very simplistic. It's not going to allow us to do everything, but it's going to allow us to get started, right? We want this thing to be able to control wash water discharge. That's the main goal. So as pressure washers, we're used to just going and having at our job sites and really not worrying too much about where the wash water is going. But that's what the problem is, and that's the big challenge that we need to overcome. We want to control wash water discharge at a reasonable rate, something like 4 to 6 gallons per minute. This is pretty typical of the kinds of machines you're going to be using when you're getting started in pressure washing, when you're usually doing residential work. You're probably operating with a 3,000 or 3,500 or maybe 4,000 PSI machine that's going to be operating either at 4 or 5, maybe 6 gallons a minute. You know, a lot of you guys got 8 gallon per minute skids, and that's awesome, but this is going to be an intro system. And so we're going to work on that level. We're not going to get too crazy with this. We want this to have a low initial build cost. And we're going to trade that low initial build cost for a permanent increase in our revenue. Okay, so you're not, you can go ahead and make absurd demands like this. You're not dealing with your boss at Pizza Hut or the general manager at McDonald's. You're dealing with essentially yourself or reality. So you can go and, in business, you can go and make a different type of a bargain with reality, right? There's not somebody on the other end fighting you back. You can set lofty goals like this and pull them off. That's important. Okay, so we want a low initial build cost, meaning we just want to spend a little bit of money to build this thing, to put this thing together, and we want it to give us a permanent increase in revenue, or it's a long-term increase in revenue. So we're going to trade a little bit of money, right? Just a little bit of money, and we're going to ask reality to give us a lot of money in return. You can do that. That's what we're going to do here. So that's what one of our goals is. All right, so we want this thing also to be small and compact. We want it to be portable, and we want it to be lightweight. This is important because when you're just getting started in pressure washing, you probably don't have a big ass heavy 1-ton truck. Maybe you do, but you might be working with a Ford Ranger or a Toyota Tacoma or some kind of lightweight rig. You don't have a lot of space, you don't have a lot of real estate. Maybe you don't even have a trailer, nothing like that. All that stuff comes later. You want this thing to you want to be able to stick this in the back seat, or maybe even just throw it in the back of the truck with a few other hoses and things like that, and not have some giant contraption that's going to be huge. We want this thing to be modular. And we want it to be expandable and upgradable. So we want this thing to be easily combined with other stuff to make it, to increase its operational capacity, to give it, to allow it to do other things with just basically minor changes without actually having to rebuild the whole system. We want it to be expandable, which means we want to be able to incorporate this piece of equipment with other peripheral pieces of equipment that allow us to do more things and charge more money. And we want it to also be easily upgradable, meaning if we find a problem with this thing at some point down the road or something that's not working that good, we want it to be easy to change it, to fix it, to make it work better. Okay, so we also want, because we're fucking taking charge of our own life, and we're doing our own thing. We want to be able to, but this is an expensive process initially when you're first getting going. We want these all these parts to be reusable on future builds. So we want all the parts, like when we're done with this thing and we're taking it all apart and we're getting rid of it, we don't want to just throw all this shit away. We want to be able to reuse some of these fittings and all these parts and stuff like that into the next system to save cost, right? So when we get into the goals for the next build, we can use the parts of this build to lower the cost of this build for the next upgrade, so that we can lower our initial investment in this thing and get more money in return for it. So we want the parts to be reusable, and for future builds. For future builds or upgrades. Or upgrades. And the reason is because you guys are going to be doing a lot of this building and upgrading your systems and stuff on your own time because you're self-employed. But also a lot of this stuff you might be doing at 2 o'clock in the morning because you got to work. You got to be on a job site at 6 or 7 a.m. and you got like a broken piece of equipment, and you can't go down to Home Depot and get another fitting. So we want to use high quality fittings that will, when we take these things apart and put them back away, we're starting to increase our stockpile of fittings and weird things that we might need access to at 2 o'clock in the morning that we're not going to have, we'll be able to get a hold of. So this is going to basically help our business reputation, because look, when you go and you start doing bids for people and doing jobs, it's real important that you honor your word. When you tell somebody you're going to be there at 8 o'clock, it's bad form to call up and show them you're not going to be there. So we don't want to do that. We want our business to be badass. We want to be the type of vendor, the type of contractor that when customers call us or when they're dealing with us over many jobs, they know that when they call us and we say we're going to do something, we fucking do it every time. We don't bring excuses to the table. We bring results. And this is just business 101 stuff. But part of doing that means what am I trying to say? I'm trying to tell you guys that you want to increase your competency. Now, if you got extra parts laying around, a small equipment breakdown at 7 o'clock at night is not going to ruin your business, or it's not going to ruin your job. It's not going to upset your customer. They're going to, even if they don't know what you're going through on a daily basis, all they know is that you're one of their most reliable vendors. Like when you come on the job site, they just stop worrying about stuff. They know it's going to get done right and it's going to get handled properly. And if something does go wrong, you're going to do the right thing and make it right. So that's part of our business that we're going to build on. And then we want this thing also. This thing needs to function off a single 110 volt 20 amp circuit. So basically one plug, for example, like the outlet on the side of the guy's house, if you're soft washing his house or his driveway or something like that, can't afford a generator yet. You might be like, hey, we're gonna pressure wash your driveway for you, but we need to pick up all the wash water on this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring a little reclaim system. However, if we can just use a little bit of power off your house, if you don't mind, then I can lower my bid a little bit. I don't have to buy a generator and we can just get this done. So we want this thing to be able to function off a minimal power supply. We're not going to use 240 volts or something that's not going to be accessible. We're looking at like residential power supply, what's available to us. So we want this thing to be able to work off of a single 110 volt 20 amp circuit. So as distinct from a 30 amp circuit, which has a different style of plug, it's got like a vertical one, a horizontal one, and then the ground plug. We want this thing just to have a normal 110 volt plug, which means the vacuum and the sump pump got to function off this single 20 amp circuit. Single circuit. Okay, and also lastly, we're most likely, a lot of you guys are single owner operators. You're not really dealing with employees yet. It's just like you going on your job site and doing the work. And you're a pressure washer, which means you're going to be busy spraying shit. So you're not going to have time to babysit this thing. This thing needs to work, must work automatically with no dedicated laborer. So we want this thing to basically work and function without taking a lot of your time or attention away from what you're used to doing. So you should be able to set this thing up, turn it on, and then just go do your thing like you normally do, and just let this thing do its own work without paying too much attention to it. I mean, you may have to go like move a vacuum hose around or something like that, but you're not going to have to be constantly cleaning this thing out or watching if the water level's getting too high, if it's plugging up or doing something weird that's going to just basically stop you from getting your work done quickly. You want this thing to just work while you're not paying attention to it. So you're essentially setting up like a little guard that's going to be on wash water guard duty. It's going to be catching this water and then putting it off someplace safe instead of letting it go to someplace dangerous. So these are our goals. What do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 7 goals for this thing. And we want it to be, we're going to aim for less than $500. And we're going to ask it to give us, let's see, we could probably use this thing for probably minimum of a couple of years. We'd say, let's be reasonable and say something like maybe, let's just be real conservative. Let's say 1 job a week. Let's say we're mostly not reclaiming, but if we can find 1 reclaim job a week in all of our pressure washing jobs, we might be able to increase our revenue by, let's say, $200 per job per week. So we got $200, right? We might ask this thing to give us $200 extra per week times, we won't say 52 weeks somewhere. Let's say we work, let's say 48 weeks in the year. right? So whatever 200 times 48 is, let's see, let's try to do some head math here. Let's say 200 times 40 is, what is that, $8,000? Plus another 8 weeks at 200, so there's 4 times 200 is, Jesus, I'm bad at math. That's 800, another 1,600. So we got a total of $8,000 plus another $1,600. So we got $9,600, right, for the year in additional revenue. If we just simply add in one reclaimed driveway to our house soft washing business a week. Might be a little bit of a lot to go, but we're going to basically, what we're going to do is we're going to trade $500 for about $10,000. And we're going to do that using just our brain. Let's say you get $10,000 out of this thing, more than pays for itself. All right, that's what we're going to do. Less than $500, and we're going to try to trade that $500 for $10,000 per year. All right, so every year that we make that $10,000, that's $10,000 that can go towards the next system. This is what we're trying to do right here. We're going to make this absurd proposition with reality. And with just this very first one, $10,000 in additional revenue, if we can set that money aside, right, we'll still make our money off our pressure washing, doing the house and, you know, bleaching this guy's siding. But if we can just find one driveway and we can up our revenue and also do the right thing by the environment, right? We can help clean up the waters of the state or our local natural waterways. And during this whole process, we can increase our revenue $10,000 per year. We'll keep this money set aside into like a holding account. And then we'll be hatching plans for our next system, our next set of upgrades, right? And we'll have that much money after 1 year, hopefully, if things go well. Maybe not. Maybe we'll only come up with 5, but 5's still good. You know, maybe we only do, we don't do 48 driveways extra with reclaim. Maybe we only do like 24. So we only get like $5,000. But still, you can get quite a bit done with $5,000 because this very first thing we're going to build for $500. So if we have 10 times that amount of money, we can build a system that's conceivably 10 times more effective, right? That's what we're trying to do. Okay, so here's our goals. Now we're going to set about designing this thing. And we're basically going to do this with, we got a bunch of parts. I got a bunch of specialty parts I had to get from places that are not like Home Depot. You know, you got to go to like Pacific Rubber and get special fittings, special cam lock fittings, check valves, weird things you can't really, you know, we want all this stuff to be like solid brass material. We don't want plastic garbage that was manufactured in China and then filling up the box stores. For some reason, the Chinese Communist Party is trying to turn the world into a fucking landfill. So we want to use nice, beefy brass parts that we can reuse over and over again. And we want to be able to set these parts aside and reuse them. So let's have a look at just a handful of these parts here. So this is just some stuff I picked up at Pacific Rubber the last couple of days. I was kind of conversing back and forth with this kid, Alex, who's he's actually a King County Parks and Rec employee. So he knows all about this stormwater business. But we essentially got here some water fittings, some big beefy, nice water fittings and reducers. This is a check valve that allows water to go one way but not the other way. We got some cam lock fittings, both threaded and barbed. These things come apart, like one of these will go into a vacuum hose, one of these will screw into a fitting. Male and female alternate versions of both. We got some bulkhead fittings here. These are what you use to put in like plastic tanks or drums or something like that, so that you can create a way into that closed vessel that's still like an airtight thing. We got 1-inch versions of these things, which means that inside thread is 1-inch NPT or national pipe thread, or more commonly referred to as MPT or FPT, female pipe thread. And then we also got same thing, 2-inch inside diameter there. of threaded bulkhead fittings. So let's go outside and see what piece of equipment we're gonna go find that's just laying around out here that we can use to accomplish all those goals. I'll tell you right now what we're gonna do it with. We're not even gonna do it with a full steel drum. We're just gonna do it with a fucking drum lid. Right here. One of these. Yeah, looks at that. Look at that piece of garbage laying on the ground. Nothing wrong with it. That's what we're gonna use right there. We're gonna go accomplish all those goals with that piece of shit laying on the ground. We're gonna turn that piece of garbage into something that will make you more money. And I'll allow you to feed that kid that wouldn't let you sleep last night. All right, let's go back inside here. Draw this thing out how we're gonna do this. All right. Okay, so I got a bigger whiteboard here. Thanks to Jenny, my partner, found this out by the dumpster. Look at this big old cool whiteboard. It's like, looks like it's a 4 foot wide by 6 feet long. And this was just sitting outside in the dumpster. It's actually not a crappy particle board one, it's like metal. Got a nice little aluminum trim on it. It was just laying out there. So like I said, all of our offices are getting demolished. Our shop and office space all getting demolished. So we had to go out and basically, or what I'm saying is that everybody was basically throwing everything away. They're all moving out. And so somebody threw away this whiteboard. And it comes in just right at the right time for us to be able to draw this thing out. Okay, so now that this camera's just all over the place, hold on, crappy tripod. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take, this thing is essentially going to be a steel drum, right? And then there's going to be maybe a little portable shop vac with some wheels on it that will hook up to this thing with a vacuum hose with some fittings coming out of the top, right? Nothing complicated, but you know, the drum is going to be basically disposable. This whole part of the body, what we're going to be focusing this effort on is the lid that sits on top of this thing. So the drum is really not important right now. Plus, you know, you guys can take this lid that we're going to build with this, basically it's got a lid with some fittings and a sump pump hanging off of it. And you'll be able to take this lid off and put it in any number of drums you have laying around. So if you got a job site where you need to pick up, oh, let's say 300 gallons of wash water. Well, with 300 gallons of wash water, you need 6 drums because each drum's about 55 gallons. So with 6 drums, you can do a 300 gallon wash water discharge job. So that's cool. And that's if you have to find a way to get this wash water off the job site. You can't leave it there for whatever reason. So, but you know, a lot of this stuff, you're not gonna have to worry about that. We're just basically gonna be using this system to basically do somebody's driveway. And we're not gonna be using any crazy chemicals. And we're just going to basically be pumping the wash water off to their grass. The main goal is to keep that wash water out of the storm drain in the front of his street in the cul-de-sac or whatever at the end of his driveway. That's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we want this system to do. Allow us to pressure wash a driveway without contaminating the storm drains with that wash water, which is what the cities don't like. So we're gonna have this lid. Hey guys, welcome back. I had to basically redo the second part of this video because I got home and I realized that the video had kind of cut off the top of this whiteboard because I'm dog shit at making videos. I got good information for you for pressure washing, but I'm stuck at making videos, so bear with me. I'm gonna whack up this footage and this editing software and then kind of splice in this part of the video into what I did yesterday. But okay, back to this reclaim system here. We have some modest, like I said, we got some modest operational goals, physical, logistical goals we're trying to accomplish with the thing, but we actually got some pretty big monetary goals. That's a good combination. Get by doing a little bit physically and make a lot of money off it. That's a good idea. So, but anyways, like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to focus all the efforts of this first initial reclamation system. Basically, we're going to build this entire thing into the lid of this drum. Now, the reason for that is because it allows us to accomplish all these goals, keeps it simple, And then it's also interchangeable, modular, upgradable, and expandable. So we can take this lid that we're going to build out with this system we're going to do here with these fittings, and we got vac in, vac out. We got, I'll go over this in a little more detail. We got electrical cord pass through. We got a chain to hang the sump pump off of. We got a wastewater discharge out, and we might even put a couple handles on this lid to make it easy to lift off. But we'll be able to take this thing and put it on any drum we want. So, and you'll see that that'll be important because over time these drums get bent up and the lids don't seal that good, and you're going to be throwing these things in and out of your trucks. And you know, if we have all this compartmentalized into the lid, that's going to save us a lot of time while we're fighting through the, you know, as you get into this work in the beginning, everything's going to be really hard. It's going to be hard to make money, and you'll be doing a lot of work. So you want to set this thing up so that you don't have to put that much time and energy into it. But basically what we're going to do is to accomplish all these goals, we're going to cut some holes in this lid. Now we're looking at this drum edge on here. What we have here is a standard old 55-gallon barrel. We'll use used reconditioned barrels. Basically barrels that have been used. What they do is they take them back and sometimes sandblast them and repaint them so they're a little more rust resistant, or sometimes coat the insides of them. But these are just basically the cheapest barrels you can get. They're about 40, 50 bucks a piece. I think Seattle drum where we're at, if you go and you buy like a couple of drums, they'll charge you like 55 bucks a drum, about $1 a gallon capacity. Or if you buy a bunch of them, they'll lower the price down to like maybe even as low as 40. So, but these drums will be important because you'll be using these things for different things. But basically what we have here is we're going to cut some holes for these 2-inch bulkhead fittings. There's 2 of those. We're going to cut some slightly smaller holes for the 1-inch bulkhead fittings, and then we're going to drill a hole and put a little, probably a 5/16 hook bolt or a little eye bolt there that we can hang a chain off of. And what this will allow us to do is, look, when you're capturing wash water, you need to have some settling time, which means you want to have a certain amount of water already in this thing, so that as new water is coming in, the sediment and stuff that's sort of suspended in the wash water, it just doesn't go right across the top of the water and then out the outlet. We want this water to kind of, the sediment to kind of get stuck in this body of water down here, which is going to be about halfway. We're going to set this up so that, you know, we'll have the sump pump hanging down about so far that the water level in the drum is basically going to stay in this range. It'll maybe get up to about here, and it'll pump down to about here, but generally it's going to be about halfway. That gives us a good body of volume that's where water is going to remain in this drum while we're working. That as sediment goes into the water, it kind of gets stuck, and it'll just sort of fall out to the bottom. That's what we want. We want to separate out as much as practically possible the loose and suspended sediment that's going to be coming in from the vacuum inline, because you're going to be sucking up all kinds of shit. So we're not going to worry about any other stages of separation right now. We're just going to be working on capturing wash water and then controlling where it's going. And then we'll do a little bit of sediment separation. Later on, we can mix in more drums. But basically, we're going to have a chain. We're going to hang the sump pump. Instead of like plumbing the sump pump with some rigid PVC pipe directly to the lid, we're going to hang it off a chain. And that's cool because at the end of the day, when we're done working, we can take, 20, 30 minutes wrapping up hoses and cleaning up our site. We'll let this drum sit here. While it's doing that and we're not working anymore, more sediment's going to fall out of this wash water. Then when we're done, the last thing we can do is walk over here, pop this lid up, unhook this chain, and then drop this sump pump a little further down, and then pump all this extra water down so that we can lift this drum up. Because you're probably going to be working by yourself and you're not going to have another guy with you, most likely, if you're a single owner operator. And so you need to be able to have this thing so that you can deal with it by yourself. But we're going to have the electrical cord's going to have a little bit of slack so that the sump pump can go up and down as we see fit on any given job site. We can hang it really high if we want to, or we can hang it really low. So for example, if you're doing like a really big job site and this thing's going to be running all day, you're going to want to hang this sump pump a little higher, and you want to give yourself more sediment settling room. If you got a small job and you don't have a lot of sediment, then you can go ahead and just drop this sump pump lower into the bin and just keep the water level rather low in here. Now there's advantages to having more air as opposed to more water, because with your vacuum, you guys know how you have like water tanks, like buffer water tanks. If you got like 8 gallon per minute skids and you're never getting enough water out of somebody's house to power this thing, so you use like a buffer water tank. Well, air in a vacuum chamber kind of works the same way. You can use your shop vac to build up more negative air pressure in here versus what's coming in through the hose. So you can create a sort of perpetual region of low air pressure. Now that's one of the advantages of having a big old vacuum tank out there, like I do on our trailers, the ones we built. When you have a lot of air volume and a little bit of water volume, you're creating like a buffer tank only for negative air pressure. That helps steady out the amount of vacuum pressure you're able to generate through your in-hose. And it also it tends to not shock load your vacuum as much. So like when you're running like a big old roots blower and you just have like in a vac truck, if that thing's like, let's suppose I have that vac truck like 3/4 full of water. I go and I put the PTO in and I fire up the vacuum and I get it going. It empties out whatever little bit of air is in here because it's mostly full of water. And then the vacuum will start working really hard right away. But if that tank is like mostly empty, it'll take that vacuum truck like 3 minutes to get all the air out of there. And so the vacuum's not working that hard. It keeps it cooler, makes it work a little better. And then also, if I like open up a ball valve on the intake line, a bunch of air will rush in, but it'll take a while to go and bring that air pressure back up. But the air pump on the vacuum truck will still be working about the same rate because it's dealing with the air pressure in here, not out in the atmosphere. So you can almost get like a sort of smaller, weaker vacuum to act like a bigger vacuum by creating a big buffer airspace. So if you got like a little crappy Home Depot shop vac, you could conceivably hook up a bunch of extra drums and just leave them empty and then use those drums as long as they're all sort of sealed up, but they're all kind of hooked together. You can use those and sort of simulate a big empty vacuum tank, which will give you a little more ability to pull harder through this vacuum hose. These are just little tricks that you learn when you play around with this stuff for a few years. You learn to develop almost like a sort of kinesthetic sense of what's going on inside these vacuum chambers, even though you can't see in there. But you learn to develop almost like, I don't want to say like a sixth sense. It's just you get like an intuitive feel for what's happening inside these tanks. And then you're getting all this information. You're like kind of putting your hand on the end of your vacuum hose and you're feeling what's going on there. And you might notice that your sump pump is slowing down. But yeah, over time, when you're playing around with these systems, you learn to develop this sort of feel for what's going on with your equipment. And you're getting all sorts of like weird information you're probably not consciously aware of, but you're like hearing the pitch of the engine. You've got the sound of the air moving through the opening of the vacuum hose. You're taking in all this information, and over time, this stuff starts to give you an image of what's going on in places that you can't see with your physical eyeballs. So that's cool. And that's a really good skill to develop, and it'll help you on job sites when you're like, down, a couple years, 3-4 years from now, when you're down in like a multi-level parking garage doing a really difficult garage cleaning with a lot of vertical head pressure, and then you're trying to pull water out of this garage, and you can't figure out why your surface cleaners are bleeding water all over the place and why things don't seem to be moving through your vacuum hose. You'll be able to tune into those malfunctions earlier and correct them so you can keep working. But basically, with the way this thing's going to be built, we're going to have these bulkhead fittings here, these two bigger ones. We'll probably put these on the ends. We'll do the smaller ones probably in the middle. One of the small 1 inches we're going to pass an electrical cord through with some reducer bushings and then some electrical cord fittings to make it airtight. And then we're also going to do the same thing with the water hose. And then we're also going to put a check valve on the water discharge line so that water can go out, but air can't be sucked back in. So as we create negative air pressure here, we need to have a check valve on the sump pump. You can put the check valve down here on the body, but what I'm going to do with this one is instead of putting the check valve, this thing right here, right? It's actually just this, but I bought some extra fittings here for water hose fittings because these always come in handy. You could reuse these later. But basically, this is like a little flapper check valve. I'll see if I can show you here. If you look inside here, so I'm going to use my watch. Okay, there's like basically a flap. And water can go one way, see? But if you turn around and try to push it that way, it just gets stuck. So this is going to prevent the vacuum from overpowering your sump pump. It wouldn't really overpower, but it could slow the sump pump down. So when the sump pump's kicked off, and it pumps the water down and you're just back into regular vacuuming, but the sump pump is temporarily inactive, what won't happen with this check valve is air getting sucked back through and then reducing your vacuum pressure here at your intake, where you really need all your vacuum pressure focused here, because we're going to be using a shitty shop vac. we don't want to waste any of that limited power that we have with this, our little intro shop vac. We don't want to waste any of that vacuum getting bled through this discharge line. So what we'll do is we'll take this check valve and we won't put it inside on the sump pump. We'll probably just put it out here. Mount it like that so that you can, just pop this thing off. It's easy to replace and you can use it for other things later. We'll just put water hose fittings on it so you don't have to like unscrew it with a pipe wrench or anything. You can just like literally take this thing off, like garden hose fitting style, and then use it on something else if you need to temporarily on a job site. Yeah, but this will be fun because now with this system, we have all these goals accomplished, but very easily we can add in more drums on the back end side. So if we want to add in later, when we got some more time and money, we can add in a whole other stage with another drum, leave this thing in place that will still do this job, but we can have another one that is dedicated towards basically just taking out more sediment from the water. So we have less going into this one, and this one can operate longer before the sediment builds up and shuts the sump pump down. Then we can have another one on top of sediment. We can add in a whole nother barrel for a stage of, say, taking oil out of water. If you got like a lot of oil stains, or maybe you're doing a fuel spill cleanup, or somebody spilled some engine oil on their driveway or something like that, and you don't want this engine oil that's going to be sort of suspended in the wash water going out onto their grass and like getting their grass all nasty, you can add in another drum that's dedicated. And of course, it would be designed differently than this one, but you can have a drum for sediment separation by creating a weir flow. We can make, suppose this is a whole nother drum that we're going to add in. All we would do is put like a barrier that kind of extends most of the way from the bottom of the drum, right? And then it sort of stops maybe 3/4 of the way up. And then we put an in and an out. And then we put the vac out, right, where we're going to be sucking water out of this drum. Water kind of comes in, spills into it. The sediment would kind of get caught on this side. The water level would rise and then spill over this barrier. And then we could have a downpipe coming in that would sort of skim that water off. We keep the water level about here. And then we could have another one that was dedicated to oil water separating, where we basically create a same situation where we got like maybe a couple of barriers, or probably even just one barrier. We'll have one set off maybe 2/3 to one side. And but this one, the barrier will come down from the top, right? So the water won't be able to flow across the top. It'll have to go down under this wall, which would stop before it gets to the bottom, and then flow back up and out of the outhouse. Then what'll happen is the oil in the water, since the oil's lighter than the water, it'll stay floating on top. You could put a bunch of oil pads in there that'll just sort of float in this chamber. The water would have to go down, leaving the oil floating on top, and then come out. And then now you got oilless water coming out of this barrel. Then you could do a whole other drum where, let's suppose you're using lots of like soaps and degreasers and sort of chemically type stuff, or maybe SH, you're doing, maybe doing a bleaching post-treating of a driveway. You can also do another drum where you're basically dedicate this drum towards taking like chemicals and toxins out of the water. And you can do that with simple charcoal. Go down and get another barrel, stuff a few bags of like, not Kingsford charcoal briquettes, but you can get some like really good barbecue charcoal. It's just like chunks of wood that's burnt. Fill that drum up full of charcoal and find a way to get the water to pass over that charcoal multiple times. And you'll take out all kinds of shit. You know, heavy metals, all kinds of hazmat stuff will come out with charcoal. You can pretty much dechlorinate water almost completely with charcoal. You gotta be, it's not as simple as I'm making it sound, but it's almost that simple. So you got a lot of options here to expand off of this initial system with simple upgrades. Okay, I think that just about does it. So what we're gonna do is probably next weekend, we're gonna build this thing out. And then we're going to test it. And I think what we'll do is we'll like put a big giant fucking 600, 800,000 gallon puddle of water out in the parking lot. And then we're going to cut this thing loose on it and see how long it takes to empty that puddle out. And then find out where our problems are. We are going to have some problems. We'll have to do some minor corrections to get this thing to work really good. But mainly what it's going to have to do is we're really going to be struggling with our shop vac that we're going to hook up to this thing, because this is just the stage of the build that we're in. We're going to be using lower power type sources of vacuum, but that's what we got to work with. But we're gonna find a way to make it work. And if we have problems with our vacuum hose just filling up full of water and bogging the whole system down, we'll figure out a way to maybe a bleeder valve to introduce a little bit of air into this vacuum line so that it sort of breaks up that solid slug of water and keeps water moving instead of just sort of getting really heavy and stopping. So we may have to do a breather valve. We'll see whatever shop vac we wind up coming up with. As we go along in time, you might be able to find a shop vac in Home Depot that's like 10 amps. Find what we're going to go try to get the most powerful one that we can get that's sort of low cost. We're going to do the sort of cost to power ratio. We'll just get the best one we can afford, and then we'll make this thing work according to that shop vac. And then later, if we got more money later, because we're making money off our jobs, we can do a shop vac upgrade and give ourselves a little more suck. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to basically build this entire cool thing right into just the lid of this barrel, and that lid is small, compact. You can stick it anywhere, and you just have a pump hanging off of it, an adjustable height sump pump, and then this will be our introductory reclamation system for hopefully less than $500. We'll see what it comes in at. We spent quite a bit of money on good beefy brass fittings that we could reuse, cam lock fittings, bulkhead fittings, but all that stuff will last. It'll be chemical resistant, rust resistant. You'll be able to use it for years. I got water hose fittings and high pressure fittings in my shop that are from when I first started. So you'll kind of get this sort of built up collection of parts. And when you're gotta work Monday morning, but you want to do a little reclamation system upgrade before you go to work Monday, and you want to get this, maybe say you get a new idea, something you want to try it, you'll build that shit out on the weekend, or maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, you won't be able to get in to go get those parts, but you have a bunch of this shit on the shelves from previous builds. So that's why we spend a little more money on these types of fittings instead of just buying crappy fucking PVC shit that we're gonna wind up throwing away after one build. So it's important to do that because you're gonna be struggling for money for a while because you're gonna be out there trying to compete with guys who aren't doing this. But if you're smart, you can make this attractive to your customers, and you can give them something that they need and get a little more money for it. So that's going to be the real trick, is kind of finding the balance of how to do that with your customers. But really, that's just like, business it's like I said, one of my past videos, it's about relationships. So when you get customers that really like you, and because you do a good job for them, they'll be willing to work with you a little bit because they know they don't have to fuck around sorting it out with some other guy who they don't know if he's going to do a good job, or they don't know how he's going to react when he screws up. Because like I always tell our employees and our customers, it's easy to swoop in and be awesome and do a good job. What's not easy to do in business is when you fuck up, how do you react? That really says more about you and your character than anything else, is how do you react when you make a mistake? That really says more about you than you doing a good job first try. That's awesome when you do a good job first try. But the real test of your character is how you handle yourself with your customers when you fuck up. Because you're going to fuck up. You're going to have problems. And, if you're the type of guy that just doesn't really have like a bad ego problem, and you don't really mind being wrong sometimes, you're not going to, when some other guy a customer might point out, oh, you missed a spot on my driveway or whatever. And this guy, he doesn't really realize that. But for him, this feels like dying. So he's going to like defend himself and make some excuse about why that happened and not want to do anything about it, or try to save face. You know what I mean? But he's not really thinking long term. But if you're the type of guy that goes, you know what, you're right. If that were my driveway, I'd want that corrected. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that for you, sir. Don't worry about it. That's my fault. No extra charge. I'll be here in an extra couple hours or whatever. But that's on me. I should have did that right the first time. Customers really like that. If you have that sort of built into your personality, you could cultivate that. That's going to go a long way. That's really how I built our business. We do some advertising. A lot of customers find us off the internet, but most of it's word of mouth. Most people hire us because they got like a really good reference. I think we even have some pretty good internet reviews. We don't have a lot, but pretty much the only people that ever have said anything have just been like really good reviews. And that's just because of the way we operate. So think long term. Think about serving your customers, right? Your goals when you're out doing this work should be to do the work, not to make money. When you're trying to make money and then you say you're out here to do this work, you have like a split purpose. You don't have an authentic, unified motivation. But if your goal is to come out and do good work and then maybe get some money for that, or for sure get some money for that, but you're looking at it from the terms of let's do good work first and foremost. I'm paying more attention to the physical operations of what's actually happening in the real world than I am my bookkeeping software on my computer and what my primary checking account says. If it's more important to you to go out and make sure the concrete's cleaned and the house doesn't have any green on it, you're less focused on what your computer's telling you, right? Because your bookkeeping system is like, when you run a business, you're basically running your business in 2 dimensions. You have your physical operations, or what you move over your shelves, the merchandise you're selling, and then you have this sort of virtual representation of that you call your accounting software, like QuickBooks or whatever. And so like if you go do some work, then you have to make an invoice. That invoice represents in symbolic fashion all that work you did. A lot of problems the guys have in business, if they don't realize this, is they confuse the abstract version of their business with their actual business. And don't do that, because what you'll wind up doing is trying to get off your job sites too early. You won't be giving your customers good results. The real business and the real physical world will be suffering and not doing well, while the temporarily the accounting side of it's looking real good. But you don't want to do that, because that situation won't last. Your books are a representation of your real business. That's what you need to be paying attention to. The bookkeeping is something that just happens on the side. Don't get your books confused with your actual business. That's a big mistake a lot of guys make. They get too focused on money. And look, guys, if you want to make money, go make money a smart way. Go in the stock market. That's a good place to make money. A pressure washing business is not a good place to make money. It's a good place to learn how to do good work and to develop a skill and cultivate a trade and create a profession. Those are good things to do with the pressure washing business. But if you're trying to make a lot of money, you're an idiot if you're trying to do it with a pressure washing business. Don't do that. Go do good work. If your big lifelong ambition is to go make a lot of money, there are plenty of better places to do that than a pressure washing business. But if you want to have a good livelihood and you want to help people out and you like dealing with people and you like dealing with problems, then a pressure washing business is a good way to make money. So I think we'll cut it off there for now. We'll do the build and the test hopefully next weekend. This guy that was going to come up and do this in this area, a kid named Alex. He's actually a King County Parks and Rec employee. He was going to come up here and we were going to do this together. We were just going to give this to him and help him out. But he had some stuff come up with one of his kids or something like that. He wasn't able to sleep, so he basically wanted to cancel, but whatever. We're going to keep on with what we're doing. So anyways, if you guys have any questions about this thing, holler at me. You can direct message me or you fucking email me or whatever. We're easy to find. Just go to Google up Mechanized Cleaning Solutions. You go to our website, the contact page, all the phone number and emails and all that shit goes right to my phone. If you want to get a hold of me directly, I'm easy to find. Just go to mechanizedcleaningsolutions.com or mechanizedcleaning.com on the internet. You'll basically, whatever message you send will hit my phone within a minute. So doesn't mean I'll respond that soon, but I'll definitely get it. So if you got any questions about this thing, post some comments or send me an email or give me a call or something like that, and I'll go over it with you. Of course, right now I don't really have that many followers or subscribers, so I can deal with that later. If I don't really think this channel is going to blow up, but if it does, of course, I'm going to have a hard time doing that. But I promise this, you guys, I'll do my best. So don't have a lot of time right now. We're getting ready to move. Got a ton of shit going on, but it's all going to be really exciting. And now, look, guys, as far as comments and stuff like that, you guys have been awesome so far. But when we start getting to the point where these fucking idiots start coming in and just posting negative comments, I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. But the main thing I want to say about that is don't engage those guys. These people that are just, shit talkers. First of all, the spirit of this whole system is designed to be cheap and very limited functionality. We're not trying to get to Z. We're going to go to A, and then to B, and then to C, and then eventually we'll get to Z. So, but you probably got some good ideas how to make this thing better, and there's a million ways you can make this thing better. But for the good of the community, what we're doing is we're starting from scratch with a little bit of money and very simple tactics. That's the entire point of the system. So maybe we can work on some of these upgrades together, and maybe I even get to learn a couple things from you guys. If there's some dudes out there that know some things that I don't that might be able to help us out, I would love that. Thank you so much. If there's any grief that you guys can save me through lessons you've learned in this kind of work or doing anything with these kinds of applications, let's all share this information together and make each other better. All right, guys, I'm out. I'm going to go home and fuck around with this footage and get this video out to you guys tonight. And then I got a pile of bits to sit down and do before tomorrow morning. And then we're up for Memorial Day weekend. 4-day weekend, baby. Unless there's some double overtime jobs we might do. I'm looking forward to taking the holidays off now. So those days of working nights every night and working weekends are kind of over for me now. And I'm glad because I'm 45 years old and I don't know how much longer I can do that shit. You got a very limited amount of time in this work, you know, before your body starts breaking down. It's why I consider it really important to stay physically fit and to work out and have a trainer and do a lot of rock climbing. And especially in parking garages when you're breathing carbon monoxide, you need to have good cardio. Real good cardio. So get out there and get some exercise, get off your ass, stop eating those fucking Doritos, and get yourself some Huskies because they'll keep a smile on your face. And all right, guys, we'll see you soon. Later.